Welcome to the June Botanical Diary, and this month I've decided to study this beautiful flower, which is the Jacaranda tree flower. This is Jacaranda mimosifolia, and here I'm using my color swatches, which I advise you to do if you have a few colors, because it's a very good way to find a starting point for your color mixing. And I got this idea from Cristina Rapoina, so I have to give her credit. But it's a really good thing to do. She does it with the different mixes, and I like to do this with my starting colors. But here I'm trying actually a Carbazole Violet by Daniel Smith. I don't have a swatch yet for that color, so I just watched it quickly on some watercolor paper. And to that, I add a little bit of quinacridone magenta to make my mix for the color. I found that the Carbazole Violet from Daniel Smith was a bit of a better starting point than the Winsor & Newton, because even though sometimes they have the same pigment, but then they're made slightly different. So I'm not sure what makes them so different, but it's good to have a different choice, and that's what I did. And then I added a little bit more quinacridone magenta to have the color mix for that part of the flower where it's a bit more reddish. So there is like a central part of the flower which is a bit more on the red side. You can see it through the violet. So, and then to this mix, I'm adding even more quinacridone magenta, sorry, because there are these pistils that still remain attached once the flower is fallen. So this color is perfect for the pistils. And unfortunately, the flowers don't last. So once I picked the branch, they started fading straight away. So I took pictures, but I like to make the color mixes straight from the live subject, but these were fading really fast. So it's good to have reference photos as well. And so now I'm mixing the color for the branches. So I used again the Carbazole Violet and quinacridone magenta, and I added a little bit of transparent yellow to make this brownish color. And it's quite dark. I'm not sure you can see it on screen, but it's quite a dark brown. So I made it a bit, so I added a bit more violet to make it a bit darker. And as usual, I name my mixes with the letters of the alphabet, but you can use any type of reference or way to label your color mixes. And I usually write what it is for as well, because sometimes it happened to me that I mix a color and then I'm not sure after a while what I was supposed to use it for. So now I'm mixing the green for the leaves, and the leaves are quite dark and dull as a green. So I use a Winsor Blue red shade and a transparent yellow. So it's a blue with the red bias and a yellow with an orange bias. So the green is not brilliant, it's a bit more muted, it's a bit more dull. And you need that sometimes. You can't always have brilliant colors. In nature, there are different type of colors. So I mixed that, and I added a little bit of quinacridone magenta just to mute it a little bit more. And I actually realized that this is quite a good color for the back of the leaves, which is the abaxial, it's called in botanical terms. So I take a note of this color for the back of the leaf. So you can see I keep checking and checking, but that's it, because sometimes as the color dries, it changes a little bit. So it's a good idea to wait just a few minutes for it to dry completely, which sometimes I'm too impatient to do, and I just change the color, and then maybe it was better the way it was before. But anyway, so I take a note that this is for the abaxial, for the back of the leaf. And then to make the color for the top of the leaf, I take some of that color and I add a bit more blue, a bit more red, but I actually go a bit over the top. So that's why I always say add a little bit at the time, but this happens. But it was a happy accident because I found a color that is quite good for the shadows on the flower. So the very darkest parts of the flower. And sorry, it's gone a little bit off camera. I will move it in a minute, but it's gone off. I didn't realize the time of making the video. So again, for the color for the top of the leaves, I take some of the previous mix and add a little bit of blue and a little bit of magenta, and this time is much better. So I'll take a note of that as well. And there we go. That's color mix G. So when you see that little accent next to the name of the color, it's that little dot I put, it means attach. So that's the way I remember. And then for the branch, I just write to use the color mixes E, G, and D, because the branch goes from green to the brownish and a little bit of sort of violet mix as well. And now I'm looking at the color for the seeds, which have different colors depending on the stage of maturity. So I'm mixing raw amber and burnt amber for the lighter seed. So I just keep checking all the time that the color is similar. And I take a swatch as usual. And this is quite good for the base color. So because it's light and diluted, it's quite light, but I always like to add a base color first and then build the layers of color. So take a note of that. And to make it darker, for this seed, I add a little bit more burnt amber. So it will make it darker and darker the more you add. And then in here again, I will take a note saying that I add more burnt amber. But for the darker shades, I need to add a darkening mix, which is what I just showed you. And what I do is I mix Winsor Blue green shade and Queen Ecuador magenta to make a sort of violet color. And then I add transparent yellow. And then I add this mix to the color that I want to make darker, because it will get darker up to a certain point and then you can't really make it any darker. So you need something to help you darkening the color without changing the color too much. And the darkening mix, I find it's a really good way to do that. So here I make swatches with more and more darkening mix. And then for the darker seed, I realized that it's very close to the darkening mix itself. So I add lots of darkening mix and just a little bit of the previous mix, the eye mix. And by adding lots of darkening mix, you get that sort of really dark brownish, blackish color of the seed. So this was the color mixing video for the Jacaranda. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you will be notified when I post the other videos, because next there will be the videos where I explain how to carry on with the page and everything I write down, all the notes that I take and the different drawings of the flower, the leaves, the seed pod and so on. So if you liked the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.